So today we will be talking about neoconservatism. And to begin, we can start with Leo Strauss, the philosopher at University of Chicago. And basically, he's building on some of the ideas of Thomas Aquinas from the Greek philosophers, most particular Aristotle, but he doesn't really go along with Aquinas in many respects. Rather, he diverges out to this more like a utopian concept. And of course, we know a lot of his students at the university there in Chicago later became prominent in the neoconservative group, as well as we see a lot of Milton Friedman students there tended to become neoconservative as well. So I don't think there's any coincidence there, but in any event, what we are seeing now, then we have a progression here where we've got the ideas that spread from neoconservatism, and we can look at the assassination of John Kennedy. Now, there was an idea within the CIA at that time to basically sacrifice some of American citizens, okay? The idea was that we will risk a nuclear war against Russia over the missiles that they had in Cuba there. We'll risk going to nuclear war, but we'll all be protected, of course. You know, these intellectuals, these CIA characters, and as well, that they tried to talk Kennedy into this. They would all go into bomb shelters, okay? They'd be safe there. And then if Russia backed down, of course, everybody would come out of the bomb shelter, everybody would be okay. But if Russia decided to use the nuclear weapons, they did. Of course, we know that they did have the capability then. The missiles there were ready to be sent over with the warheads on them, the nuclear warheads, and so of course, see that was always their idea. That their idea was that we are better than the American people. You know, we are the elites. So a lot of Americans say it doesn't really matter to us as long as we are safe in those bomb shelters. You see, that's all they cared about. Well, that's the idea of the neoconservatives as well, you see. And then we've got the progression here where another character by the name of, he was a very liberal guy, his name was Irving Kristol. So he comes along and he says, well, okay, we know that we're beat, you know, we can't get our communist utopia set up. You know, Rosa Luxemburg and her friends were executed in Germany before World War II, so there's nothing we can do. But so what we'll do is we'll try to worm our way into with the conservatives here, and we'll call ourselves neoconservatives, and we'll come up with this agenda, which is based on the writings of Leo Strauss, and then we will just basically set up a program so that we will eventually have Israel conquer the whole world. Well, that's a good idea, a nice idea, but it just is extremely unrealistic, and it's just not going to happen. So we see Irving Kristol and his son Bill Kristol sets up this phony magazine called Weekly Standard. He promotes all these kooky ideas. He gets a lot of people all fired up about going to war. All he is a fucking warmonger like the rest of those sons of bitches. And but see, so they were doing okay as long as they had George H.W. Bush, you know, the CIA guy that set up the assassination of President Kennedy in Dallas. You know, at that time, they had several plans to go on at that time, by the way. It wasn't just the one plan at Dealey Plaza, but that was the one that they actually pulled off. So, but of course, it's probably the case that Lyndon Johnson wanted to be president so badly that he was willing to make a deal with the devil, with these sons of bitches, neoconservatives, and go along with that. But so then, of course, we get, just like Johnson hated Kennedy and the Kennedy brothers, he called them Ivy League, graduates who he detested them, and it was the same way with Bush and Reagan. George H.W. Bush despised Ronald Reagan. And of course, we know there was another assassination attempt that didn't work. So, luckily, Reagan survived that assassination attempt. But then, as time progressed, we got this son of a bitch. Bill Jefferson Clinton, and we got 8 years of that, and then we got, of course, Bush's son. Okay, all of this was pre-planned by these neoconservatives. Of course, Bush's son just simply was there. I mean, all he had to do was be there, and all these operatives like Cheney and Rumsfeld, who were actually back at the time of Project Northwoods, which was the conspiracy where they wanted to actually set up these false flag operations to kill American citizens, believe it or not. Okay, which Kennedy, of course, rejected because it's totally unethical and totally wrong. Okay, period. It's actually murder, and no government has the right to murder its own people. But okay, so these bastards, Cheney and Rumsfeld, then were the lead players when this fool, son of George H.W. Bush, who they called George W. Bush, was elected president. Now, the only upside of all this was that the pro-life people didn't have to go along with the Democrats as another Democratic administration after Clinton, which was just so horrible, because this is the other side of it, is that the neocons are generally not big supporters, except for libertarians, but they're generally not big supporters of killing unborn children like the Democrats are. So now we stand today. We had the 8 years of W, and then the 8 years of Barack Hussein Obama, just another puppet in there. They wanted a affirmative action guy that they could control, which they got. And nobody expected that Trump would win. Even, of course, the media is all controlled by the CIA. Even the CIA director, Colby, said that before he was killed, for coming clean on some of this stupidity that the agency was going forward on. So it really comes down to the elites. I mean, these people are just, crazy. I mean, they're just nuts. So we got to get rid of these elites, and now that we have Trump as our president, we've got to go forward, keep out of these fucking wars, and build America again to what we are, the greatest nation in the world. Thank you and goodbye.